Hello everyone, welcome back. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to do a real quick how to shake a player or camera or whatever it may be. I've seen a couple of other videos on this, and they're all done with the C sharp, and what I just wanted to make one using visual scripting that everybody could follow along and see how this works. Right here we have our little guy, so if we want to just take and make him shake, so right now we have this attached to the camera, so we'll make the whole world shake. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. So if I hit the space bar, you see the whole world will shake, the player shakes, everything shakes, and if we can run around and everything is shaking. So let's get started on this, and we'll kind of give you an idea of how it all works, and you can build your own and kind of build off of this if you find anything else that you want to add. One thing you would want to do is probably put this into a super unit so you could pop it onto any object anywhere, and then at that point you're just setting 3 different variables, and we'll go over that here in a minute. So let's get started. So on this, what I'm doing is I have the input, I come in and I hit space and it starts the process, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the magnitude of the shake. So this magnitude, I set it at 0.1. If I set it to 1, it's going to violently shake. You see how that shakes like that, and then when it finishes, it goes back to how it was. Now this can be whatever scale of your project will be. So it could be a large number, it could be a small number. It just depends on the scale of your project. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to set that value as a magnitude, because we're going to use that down below to lerp the values, and so we're going to need that. Okay, so from there what we're going to do is we're going to set the start position. We need a start position for where we started shaking, because when we're done shaking we want to go back to that exact same position. That way we don't end up going off into Neverland, because once you stop shaking, if your timer's off, well, you're going to end up here versus back down here where you belong. Okay, so what we're going to do here on the timer, we have this magnitude being set. We've got our start position. Now the timer is going to say, okay, how long do you want me to shake? Okay, and we'll come down. This will be the end. This is where we're going to reset our position. So this is our final step on completed. Once our timer is over, we're going to reset so that we end up in the exact same position we started in. So that just makes it a lot cleaner to make sure we're not drifting. Okay. So now for the tick, what we're going to do is we're going to come down here. We're going to set this graph variable, which is the magnitude. So to do this, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to hop back over here. And this is where it gets a little confusing for people not understanding how these flows work. You don't always connect every single line in visual scripting. It depends on what type of node it is and what you're doing. So in this case, this entire chunk of code back here is just simply dragging along. It's going to pull it from it. It's not needing to go into anything. You don't have to have a flow into it. It's just going to drag it into it, if that makes sense. So let's start over here before we create our vectors and stuff, and we'll start right over here with the magnitude. Okay, this is what we set up here. This is our 1. All right, so if whatever that number is, we're going to take that magnitude and then we're going to lerp that value, and that gives it that nice smooth, as you can see, it's slowing down when it's shaking. That way we're not just coming to an abrupt start and finish. It's a nice smooth, slow, gradual of the stop shaking, kind of like an earthquake aftershock. Okay, so from that, we're going to take that lerp and we're going back down to 0, because we don't need it to be moving anymore when it's done. Okay, and then we have the time delta time, and this is going to smooth it. And this is the second of the third variables that we're going to be setting. This will determine how quickly or slowly you stop shaking. So it's important to set that to whatever you want. So if I set it to 4, you see it's going to shake a very long time. Okay, now it's going to stop because I'm at 5 seconds. So at 5 seconds, it's done no matter what. So you're going to have to reconcile 5 and 4, whatever these values are, just kind of set them and tweak them to however you want. But if I set that to 1 and we're just on time delta time, it'll start shaking and then really quickly come back down to 0. Okay, so that's real straightforward on how this works. So you're going to be adjusting this value and this value and this value here. So those three, you're going to do magnitude, the time, and then the value for how long it takes to slow down. Up next, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply that lerp value by -1 because we have to have a range, because we're setting a range for our XY values. So we want negative a certain number, positive a certain number, so we can only shake so much. It's kind of like clamping it. So we've come out here and we've got our start position that we got up here, right? We've got the start position. So we have our start position. We're getting X, Y, and Z. So X and Y is where we're going to do our shaking. And if you're in 3D, you might use the Z. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take that magnitude. We're going to bring it in as a positive integer here, or a positive float here, and a positive here, and negative here, and a negative here. And then we're going to set our ranges on this random number generator. Because what we're doing is we're creating it, kind of building this weird little, just randomly spotted points everywhere within a certain range. Okay, so from there, what we're going to do is we're just going to come down, we're going to create a vector 3, and then that vector 3 is going to feed the set position. So the whole thing running, we come through, we're setting a magnitude, we're setting our start position, we're going to set an amount of time that we're going to do this. We come over here and we're going to say, all right, we want this magnitude to lerp down, okay? And then we're going to randomly set these values over and over and over as it's lerping. We're going to create a vector 3, and then we're going to constantly set that position to the new position. So it can shake wildly, gently, however you want, for as long as you want. So you could have this set up as a trimmer system, or a character shake, anything you want. You simply just add this to your game object, and then from there you trigger it, and then away you go. You've got a nice little shaking going on. So that's all there is to this one. It's really straightforward. And if you haven't had a whole lot of practice with the flows and how these connect, don't get too hung up on that. It takes a little bit. I've only been doing this since January of this year, very late January of this year. So in that short amount of time, I've been able to pick all this up and create these videos. And I don't think anybody else should have the same trouble. It's just a matter of understanding it doesn't have to be connected for it to work. It's kind of a disorganized organization. We'll call it that. So just kind of keep in mind, anything that you're wanting to drag values from, you'll typically you won't have it connected to anything. You kind of just go with the flow. Whatever the flow is when it's actually doing something, setting a variable is doing something. This isn't actually doing anything. It's just dragging values over to it. Okay. So hopefully all that doesn't make sense, or does make sense. I'm not sure, but we'll get to the end of this one, and I appreciate you guys. Have a great day.